There are 162 known burials here at Pioneer Cemetery, including Ted Mears right behind us, who was one of the first burials here. Tell us how he met his tragic death.
Well, in January of 1888, Ted was a bachelor farmer, and he was at a party on Broadway with a bunch of other bachelor farmers, and a blizzard blew up. So he was a little worried about his cows, which were in a stable just across the road. So he excused himself, went out the door into the blizzard, got completely lost, and died. They found him frozen to death 5 miles south a few days later. So he had just stepped out in the blizzard and been completely lost. And remember, all he's doing is going across Broadway, so less than 100 yards from where he left the house. And but it was, you know, this is Saskatoon in 1888. It was isolated and very, very lonely. There weren't a lot of people out here, and one misstep on a blizzard, there's no lights, no landmarks, no roads. So that was poor Ted Mears.
And who was buried right behind us here?
Well, Neville Pendergrass was one of the Pendergrass brothers who came out here about 1884. He fell off the ferry crossing the river in 1887 and drowned. Yes. And now the tragic thing about it, well, to add to the tragedy, I should say, him and his brothers had come in advance of their mother and sister. And so his mother and sister were in transit when he died. So she arrived in Saskatoon to discover that her son had died tragically just a couple weeks before. Interestingly enough, now Mrs. Pendergrass, her homestead is the area that's now the exhibition neighborhood, and she planted her house right on the corner of what's Isabella and St. Henry, the closest spot on her land to this cemetery. And so I like to think that she built her house there so she could look out her door and see the place where her son was buried.
Wow, that's all very interesting. All right, so we are actually going to, because we mentioned right off the top, there's 162 burial graves here, but a lot of them were moved due to the river slumping, and we're going to chat about that in our next segment. There's lots of interesting stories coming to you on today's show, so make sure you stay tuned.